Hi everyone, we're coming to you live on Facebook. I'm Ashley Nordin, Education Developer here at Blick Art Materials, and we're really excited to bring you this amazing freeform geode project demonstration. We're going to be using art resin, which is a two-part resin mixture, and combining with golden fluid acrylic paints and Jacquard Pinata alcohol inks to make these jewel-like and gemstone colors that we find so fascinating in geodes and agates. We're going to demonstrate a disposable mold making process. So if you're just stepping into mold making and you're really curious to make an agate or geode of your own, this is a great opportunity to step in and start out with this process. I want to remind everyone before we get started here this evening that we are doing a giveaway for a free $100 Blick e-gift card, and you can enter to win that gift card this evening by liking this post, liking our page, and following us on Facebook. And also let us know your response to the question prompt for this evening's giveaway, which is, what's your favorite type of gemstone? And have you ever used resin? Let us know in the chat and you'll be entered to win that giveaway. And we'll also be in the chat responding to any questions that you might have about the process or the products that we're using this evening. So feel free to jump in and we'll see you in the chat. Let's go ahead and get started with this mold making process. I'm going to be doing a one-part mold, which means we're just going to cast one part. We don't need another part to secure it or to make the object. And I'm working on a hard board to make my mold. And I've covered that with a piece of the Tough Stuff plastic drop cloth, and I've just taped it on the back to secure it and keep it flat. And this is a non-stick surface that we're working on so that when we pull the geode off of the surface, it's not going to adhere. It's going to just pull right off. So for our geode shape, I have some super Sculpey here that we're going to be using to form our mold. And all you need to do is make a quick sketch of your geode shape onto the Tough Stuff drop cloth using a China marker or a wax pencil. And you can sketch your design with some asymmetrical or irregular sides, and that can really make it look a little more natural, which we really like and we can do here. So perfect. So then the next thing that you're going to want to do with your super Sculpey, or maybe you have an oil-based clay that this could potentially work with. It's going to come in a way that you can separate the pieces easily, and then you just connect those pieces end to end, just like that, by squeezing them together. Then we're going to take that Sculpey and we're going to form it around the geode sketch that you've just created. And you're just going to set it in place using a little bit of pressure, following along the line as you work. And I'm going to capture some of that irregularity. Okay, and if I need more, I just take a little bit. I can build this wall as high as I would like. So if I want an extra thick geode, I could stack these on top of each other and it would make a higher wall. This is going to give you about a 1/4 inch wall all the way around. So there's your shape. It's also nice to make an opening for your geode. It's totally optional for this process and you don't have to make an opening. But if you want to, we're going to include that in this demonstration this evening. And that kind of goes the same way. You can sketch it out, or you can just free sculpt the shape that you think you want. Okay, I'm just going to kind of mimic the shape that I already have there. Perfect. All right, it's already starting to take shape. Now, we're going to be using the Envirotex measuring cups, and you get about 5 cups in the set, and they also come with these great little tools that you can use. And for our purposes, I'm going to use one of these large craft sticks to continue forming my mold. And I'm just going to take the rounded edge and I'm going to press while I connect the Sculpey to the surface. And what this is doing is it's making an airtight mold. So when you pour your art resin, this is going to help ensure that your resin doesn't flow out from underneath the Sculpey. And this is a really key part of the mold making process, is making your mold airtight. You're going to want to go all the way around, and you can do this on both sides. Okay, so you can do this out here and on the inside. So let's get this formed. And this is a very basic sculpture process that can really come in handy when you want to take on crafts like making geodes. Okay. Okay. Now, because this process, you want that added security that you're not going to get any leakage. So again, go on the outside and tamp that down. But make sure that you're keeping enough of that 1/4 inch wall all the way around. So don't smash it, in the center. Stay on the edge. Okay, once you have that formed, you're going to want to continue to make it airtight. And I'm going to use this golden glass bead gel medium. And this is just a clear medium that has little glass beads in it, little gel beads. And what it's going to do is it's going back to that airtight. It's going to make it airtight, but it's also going to have a little bit of texture when you pull it away so that it's easy to pull off of your geode once it's cast. When you apply this golden glass bead gel, apply it on all sides and apply it liberally. So again, what this is doing, this is sealing up any holes or any possible imperfections that you didn't take care of or couldn't see fully in the mold making process. Sometimes there are pinholes that we just can't see, and we certainly don't want to spring a leak. So that's really what this step is for. Okay, and I'm going to apply this all the way around. All right, and that's just going to really make sure that this is secure. In addition, because we're working on this nonstick surface, you won't have any issues with the medium adhering to that work surface. So let's get this really on there. All right. And you can also just use a regular craft brush or whatever you have hanging around that you don't mind using for this process. Okay, take some time to work that in all the way around your mold. Then you want to take care of the inside, okay? And you can go on both sides. Oops. Okay, do the same thing here. And then take your glass bead gel, cover that all the way around, okay? I want to keep moving, so I have one that's prepared for us. So once we get this coated and we get that mold created, the next step, the next thing that you're going to see, once that's dry on your board, it should look like this. Okay, so it's nice and clear. We know that it's dry because it's translucent. This coat was recently applied, so it's still drying, but it's going to be okay for what we're doing. Make sure that it's as dry as possible. Of course, if you're working quickly, just make sure that it's airtight. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our art resin. I'm going to set aside these mold making items now that we've, oops, sorry everyone, this is live. Just
move that mold down a little bit.
Yes.
You can remind everyone about the giveaway if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that. While we pick up our pieces here and move things around, let me remind everyone that we are doing a giveaway this evening. Make sure that you go and check out the bundle page for this project. There you'll find all of the instructions, all the materials that we're using, and if you enter to win that $100 Blick e-gift card, then you're going to definitely want to hop over to that bundle page. You can enter to win tonight's gift card by doing a couple of things. You can like this post, like this page, and follow us on Facebook, and respond to the prompt in our chat, which is, what's your favorite type of gemstone? And have you ever used resin? Let us know, and we'll get you entered to win that giveaway. Okay, so we've moved some things around, and we're all set with our mold making process. Now we're ready to get started painting with resin. I'm going back to these Envirotex cups that we're going to be using, and I have some craft sticks. And if you have them, if you have kitchen gloves or crafting gloves, it can be helpful to protect your hands when you're using the resin. It's very sticky, and it can get on things, and it can be a little tough to wash out. It will wash away from your hands. That's not a problem, but it's always nice to have a little extra protection. I also have an apron on to protect my clothing, so if you're wearing an art smock or an apron, that will definitely help to protect your clothes. All right, so the art resin, which is the 2-part resin, comes in various sizes, up to 1 gallon, and we love the ease of usability of this art resin because it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's go ahead and get started with pouring. These Envirotex cups are going to have an ounce by ounce marking on the side of the cup. So I'm going to use 1 ounce of each hardener and resin for a 2-ounce color pour mixture. When I'm pouring the art resin, because I'm measuring, I'm going to keep my cup flat on the table, and I'm just going to watch as I fill this up to the 1 ounce. Okay, so that was my resin. Now the hardener, another ounce. Okay, I have my 2 parts, and now I'm going to add a little bit of color. I'm going to use, start off with the Golden Fluid Acrylic Teal color. This is one of my favorite colors. It's just so bright and has such a nice tone to it. And you can make these mixtures as transparent or opaque as you like. And I like a nice strong color. So that's a couple drops of the fluid acrylic. And then you'll take your craft stick, and you're going to want to mix this all together. I'll set this down here. You're going to want to mix this all together for up to 3 minutes. And during that time, you can watch the mixture and make sure that you're getting any loose paint off of the sides here. And you really just want to make sure that those 2 parts are combined. If you happen to not be able to combine the resin for 3 minutes, you may have some issues with the curing process. For example, it may not harden fully. So we don't want to, we certainly want to avoid any issues with the hardening of the resin. So do your best to mix for up to 3 minutes. All right. I'm going to keep mixing so that we can get a couple of colors made. So let's move on to our second color. I'm going to do the 1 ounce of one part, 1 ounce to the second part. Try to keep it as accurate as possible. Now let's add some alcohol inks. Alcohol inks can add some really nice effect to your geode painting, including cells, which we love. And I'm going to make a little bit of white here. Okay, again, let's get this going. Making sure that we scrape any excess paint off the sides and make sure that these parts are combining. You'll have about 45 working minutes with the resin, which is a really generous amount of time to be able to set up your pour mixtures. We can add anything to these mixtures. I'm using some paints, but you can also use glitter, gold leaf, natural rocks or glass pieces, or anything like that you can think of. Resin is great for these mix-ins that we can make. Let's make one more mixture before we start really moving here. And I'm really excited to get pouring and get these colors on the board so that you guys can really see what this stuff is made of. Let's make another color. Let's use Baja Blue of the Pinata alcohol inks. This is a transparent, darker blue. I like a mixture of transparent and opaque colors, and I think that's a good point to bring up, that different color opacity can have a really nice effect in this project. All right. Perfect. Let's just do one more, and we'll use the blue. And boop. Okay. So if any of you guys have questions out there about the resin, now is the time. We're going to be in the chat, and we're here to help. And if you're wondering about the products that we're using today, check out our bundle page. It's there for you as a resource to help provide those project instructions and give you a portal into all the products that we're using here today. This is the ultramarine blue golden fluid acrylic. And look at these incredible color tones that we're getting with the resin. I think this is a really nice, transparent but nice and dark color that's going to stand out. All right, I think we have enough colors to start, so let's go ahead and start pouring. Another thing you can do is we're going to be using these pipettes. Make sure we have those handy before we get started. Now with pouring, we want to work from the furthermost part of the opening toward the middle. That's just going to help us get an even pour, and it gives us something to go by. If we start here in the middle, the resin will start to move out, and it can be a lot easier to control when you're working with the widest space at the onset. I want to make sure this gets nice and mixed. I can pour directly from the cup, and I'm going to start at the top here. And I'm just going to pour right along the edge. Look at this luscious and creamy, I want to say creamy color when we combine the golden fluid acrylics with the art resin. It's a really nice consistency, really nice mixture. And I don't have to use all of it. I can save some for later. Take your pipette, place it in the cup. Okay, let's move on to our next color. I'm going to go to this Baja Blue. This was a transparent color. I'm making sure it's really nice and mixed. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at the same place. Slightly less wide pour, you know, it's a different size going around. That can, kind of variation can create some nice effects. Pipette, we're going to be using those pipettes to pour in our color rings or to distribute more resin for more detail areas. Let's use our ultramarine blue. Do the same thing. We're going to pour. And I'm just going to use even less this time. And every time I go around, I'm completing the loop. So I'm making sure that I go all the way start to finish the whole time. Now let's use our white. Really make sure this gets mixed up. Okay, and I'm going to go around. Oop. All right, perfect. Get my pipette in there. Okay, at this point, the resin is going to start moving toward the center. And we want that to happen. And while it's doing that, we have an opportunity to come in and create more texture and add in more resin using our pipette. And you really want to get these started so that they start kind of sucking up the resin as quickly as possible, because you want to keep that continuous line of resin moving. So I'm going to go ahead and get another one started here. And while I'm doing that, make sure that you've taken a moment to enter to win our giveaway, which is incredibly easy to do. You'll like our post, make sure you like this page and follow us on Facebook, and then answer the question to our prompt, which is, what's your favorite gemstone, and have you ever used resin before? We would love to know what you're thinking about those questions. And you'll be entered to win that $100 Blick e-gift card. All right, so I want to try to keep this continuous line going. And as you continue to work, your pipettes will perpetually fill, and you'll be able to easily switch back and forth between those colors. Great. And you can go back over that line if you want to. You can widen the bands of color. Let's choose a different color. Let's go back in. I can work around the edge. So just because we started at the edge doesn't mean that we can't go back to it. And get these color rings going. Give that pipette a little bit of time to fill up. Go back. And I'm just alternating between them, keeping things moving. And I could just do this for hours, and maybe you do. Or maybe you keep it simple and you have just a couple of colors. You know, use as many colors as you feel comfortable with. But noting that it can be helpful to use a limited palette. So here we're using a limited palette. We're using analogous colors, so colors that would be close to each other on the color wheel. You know, different blues and greens. And that can be a really easy way to approach the color concept. I like these cool colors that come together. And they can really be anything that you want. You can use purples, you can use greens, you can use yellows. It's really completely up to you when it comes to the color concepts. As long as we're staying away from that little bubble there, red, yellow, and blue. Sometimes you'll get those little air bubbles. It's okay, keep it moving. Okay, we're going to continue to add color, but as a step in the process, you're going to notice some air bubbles that are starting to happen on the surface of your art resin. So that's what we have our mini torch for. And if you've never used the mini torch, please follow the instructions on the back of the packaging on how to fill with butane and how to ignite the torch. We're going to safely use the torch here by pulling down on the switch at the back of the torch after it's been filled, and then igniting by pushing this trigger. So make sure that it's not pointed at anyone other than at your project, and then hold it 6 inches away. Go ahead and pull that, and you should start seeing these air bubbles be lifted away. Make sure you don't burn your resin. If you get it too close, you will burn the resin, and it's already starting to look nice and smooth, and that's really what we want. Let's keep adding color so that we can get even closer to what we want that final outcome to be. And I'm going to show you another step to working with the resin. And if you're a fluid painter out there, you're extremely familiar with all the tools of the trade in terms of using craft sticks, using pipettes, and using these different items to capture some detail. And we're going to get into that here shortly. Let me just see. Now I really feel like I want to get this made. All right, one more. And it's completely intuitive. You don't have to necessarily have a plan when you go in, maybe other than what colors and paints and things you're going to be using. But other than that, it's totally up to you. Get that nice sinewy line going. Okay, so if you're wondering about how to control the resin, for example, if I want to get some of this white, and I just want to add it to a little area, I can pick it up on my craft stick and I can apply the resin that way. Okay, so the pipettes are one way, the pouring is another way, the craft stick is another way. If I want to blur the line between layers, or if I want to just make this line look a little more detailed by running some color through it, this fluid painting process, just using a craft stick, can get you different results. Okay. Then let's take this same stick. I've got some interesting things happening over here, and you know what else I'm noticing is that my resin might be slightly working its way forward. You want to make sure that you're working on a level surface. So I'm going to add a little height to that side of my board. Okay, let's add more color. Oops. And what I like to do, because the edges start to get hairy sometimes, so I like to pour my resin around the uneven edges, and it kind of clears them away. Perfect. So you're going to want to pour your resin as high up on this Sculpey disposable mold wall as possible. You want to try to build it up to that 1/4 inch. You might end up using something like 10 to 12 ounces of the art resin for one geode, depending on how big. This is an extra large geode, in my opinion. You know, you can make them incredibly small. People make coasters. You know, there's all kinds of object art that you can make using this process. So I want to throw that disclaimer out there as you're stepping into this. You know, that you're not limited in this process to one size over and over. You know, certainly if you find a size and shape that you like and you want to keep working with that, then you can start to take that to the next level.
Want to remind everyone about our giveaway? We're about halfway through.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to remind everyone that we are doing a giveaway this evening for a $100 Blick e-gift card. So if you're wanting these supplies and materials, they could be yours, and it's incredibly easy to enter. All you have to do is like this post, like our page, follow us on Facebook, and respond to the question prompt in our chat, which is related to our project. What is your favorite type of gemstone? And have you ever used resin before? You know, I think that this project is an excellent opportunity for those beginners out there who are wanting to test their resin chops. The art resin, being a 2-part, makes it incredibly easy to use, extremely beautiful results when we mix that with our paint. And I'm just going to close this loop like we talked about before. All right, let's go ahead and hit it with our torch again. Okay, and you want to torch a couple times. Again, don't hold it too close. And I want to show you a couple more things before we move on to the unmolding process. So at this point, you know, use your various tools that you have available to make your geode look the way that you want it to look. Use your craft sticks, use your pipettes. Continue to work the rings of the agate over and over because you have that working time. You have that ability. I can push this around. However I want. There we go. Some of the colors are going to kind of sink below some of the others, and I think that can be really beautiful. Different things that are happening. So I do think it's nice to use kind of a combination of the different colors and textures that you have available. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up so that we can move on to the unmolding process. So once you've gotten your geode to a place where you feel like, and it looks better and better as you go. So it kind of goes through that awkward middle stage where, you know, you're not quite sure what's going to come out on the other side. But don't worry. With all of this working time that you have with the art resin, you're going to be able to keep the resin flowing for a nice long time and get those results that you want. I also want to note, you know, when you're using, if you're using any glass pieces or gemstones, that when you pour over those, you'll get some of the, some interesting texture and irregularity and asymmetry that we talked about at the beginning of the demo. Okay, For now, this looks like it's at a pretty good stopping point. I want to show you one more technique. It's always one more technique.
You want to move the torch for me from the space.
Okay, and so I have a metallic Pinata silver alcohol ink here. Totally optional, but I just want to show you what happens when we do add that alcohol ink. It's going to kind of hang out on the surface rather than sink below. And so I'm just going to put a little bit on the edges. It doesn't take a lot to have a really big impact. Now we don't want to leave it spotty, so let's go back to that technique that we were talking about with using our craft stick. And we're just going to push it through just a little bit so that it kind of surrounds the edge. Again, this is totally optional, but I really like bringing in the metallic to the Geode artwork. I think it definitely has a place there. So for you crafters out there who are wild about alcohol inks, here's another opportunity to combine the two very commonly paired items, being the resin and the alcohol ink. And even here, and I'm getting some of these cells, which I really like, still, you know, continue to go in and place your rings. You don't have to stop here. This is just another layer in the process. So if I want to go back right over that, around the edge, and kind of clean up that edge like we talked about. Oop, air bubble. Okay, so this is that meditative, slow, resiny process. The art resin is non-toxic, so it does have a little bit of an odor, but it is not a toxic odor, so you can feel comfortable about that. All right. So let's go ahead and keep moving in this process. I think we have a really good grasp on the different types of techniques that can be used and how to create these, you know, fascinating rings and textures and bring in these metallic elements. And again, you know, don't worry about the awkward middle stage of your painting. Continue to work and add these layers as you go. And it's really hard to step away from. Like I keep saying that we're going to move on to the next step, but then I think, oh, you know, this next color is really going to help to break that up. And look at how this ultramarine blue breaks up that silver so nicely. It's things like that that you can do to make this geode come to life. Okay, let's go ahead and move this out of the way. I think we're ready for our unmolding process. You should have something that looks like this after 24 hours when your geode has had a chance to cure. You want to make sure that the art resin is no longer tacky and that it's totally dry and ready to unmold. Before I get done here, I do want to remind everyone of our giveaway. You still have a chance to answer the question prompt in our chat, which is, what's your favorite type of gemstone and have you ever used resin? And make sure that you like this post, you like our page, and you follow us on Facebook, and you'll get a chance to win that $100 Blick e-gift card. And you can head over to that bundle page and check out all the products that we're using here today. So as you can see, I easily lifted my art resin Geode from the working surface. And right now it's a little bit flimsy because it's been just less than 24 hours, but you can still remove the mold as long as it's not tacky, but then continue to let it sit flat on a level surface when you're all set. And this is just going to pull away. Look how easily this is coming off of the Geode. I mean, this is great.
Move it down just a little bit?
Yes. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure you guys can see everything that we're seeing. So we're just pulling this mold away. And if I want to, I can use a Dremel and I can clean up my edges, but I really like these natural edges. And I'm going to show you one last technique before we wrap up. Again, this is totally disposable. Toss it. Remove it from the center. Toss it. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. Now, as a last step, we have these glass pieces, and you can take these pieces and you can tack them down with a little bit of craft glue once you have the mold cleaned up. I just love this part. I really think it makes the Geode look so much more authentic and natural and shining, and can really pull out some of that natural beauty that this process captures. Okay, and I'm just placing these. You can use different sizes of the glass. You can break them down crush them into even smaller pieces. You can add them to your resin even as an inclusion like we did with the paint. Okay, so once you have your pieces placed, then go ahead and use a little bit of craft glue and just piece by piece start adhering these. And I have a little bit of craft glue here, which we can use. Okay, I can do that on the inside, and then I can also, if I want to, do it on the outside, and maybe I want just a little bit, and it's a little bit thinner. This is totally up to you, and it's also optional. If you wanted these on the outside of the ring, or if you wanted them on the inside, that part is totally up to you. Okay, so this is totally optional, and you can place these gemstones however you like. And when you're happy with how they're placed and you've got them glued down, hopefully what you end up with is something like this, something that looks natural. You've got lots of colors brought in, lots of color rings. We're using the glass pieces, and there's just a lot of fun and excitement in taking a look at this piece. I can set it up for display as home decor, or I can adjust this process to make coasters, tabletops, anything that I can imagine. So I hope that you take something away from this process and that you enjoyed this demo today. And we look forward to seeing you at our next Facebook Live this Thursday at 4 p.m. We'll see you there.